Okay, so we're going to shift gears. We're going to learn now about quadratic equations, and we're going to start looking at a parabola. That's your new word for the day, parabola. It is not parabola. Got to put the emphasis on the correct syllable, and it is a parabola, okay? And a parabola is this U-shaped graph, U-shaped figure. So this is not linear. These are not lines. This is a new type of function that you're going to be introduced to. Now, a parabola has parts. Notice that it's symmetrical. There is a line through here that cuts that parabola in half. And that line is called the axis of symmetry. The other part that we want to learn today is this turning point right here, where the parabola shifts direction, and that is called the vertex of the parabola. So every parabola has a vertex, and it has an axis of symmetry. Those are the two main parts we're going to focus on today. We will, in a couple of days, we'll start looking at these x-intercepts. They're pretty important too, and they'll be related to what we were doing when we learned how to factor. But right now, today, we want to learn about the axis of symmetry and the vertex. Now, a parabola has an equation, just like a line has an equation. And the standard form for the equation of the parabola is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, this should look familiar. This is a trinomial that we've been factoring quite often, right? So the graph of a trinomial where the highest exponent is 2 is called a quadratic. Now, one thing that always comes up, hey, it has an exponent of 2, a degree 2, actually. Why is it called quadratic? That's your little extra. You look up, see if you can tell me why it's called a quadratic, even though the highest exponent is a 2, because we see quad and we think 4, but the degree of this polynomial is 2. See if you can find it out, okay? So when graphed, as we've already said, a quadratic equation creates this U-shaped curve called a parabola. Our goal for the next couple of lessons is to learn how to find the parts of the parabola, that axis of symmetry and the vertex, and to graph them. Today we're just going to sketch. Tomorrow we'll actually learn how to graph. Now, here we have an equation of a parabola, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. So what you need to start getting used to doing is finding that a, b, and c. A is the coefficient of x squared. Here it is 1. B is the coefficient of x. Here it's 2. And c is the constant, which sort of makes sense. They kind of try to do that on purpose sometimes. So c is negative 5. So a is 1, b is 2, c is negative 5. Now, tomorrow you're going to learn how to graph. Today we're just going to sketch it. If you were to sketch this parabola, it would be about right here. Here'd be your axis of symmetry, and here'd be your vertex. Okay, you could actually go to Desmos and plug that in if you wanted and see the actual graph. This next one, y equals negative x squared, that's important, plus 3x plus 7. If we identify a, b, and c, a is negative 1. The coefficient of the squared term is a minus, so that's a minus 1. b is 3. Coefficient of x is 3. And then c is 7. Okay? If you were to sketch this, it would look sort of like that. That's a terrible parabola. But you could go to Desmos, plug it in, and see the actual graph. So there's your axis of symmetry, there's your vertex. And here's what you need to know. If the coefficient of the squared term is positive, then the parabola is going to open up. So here, a was a positive 1, so it opens up. It's a smile, okay? If a is negative, here it's a negative 1, the parabola is going to open down, and it's going to be a frown, okay? So we have a positive happy parabola or a negative sad parabola. Definitions. We've already talked about it a little bit. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that divides a parabola in half. Okay? Now, since it's a vertical line, remember a vertical line has undefined slope and its equation is x equals something. The equation of the axis of symmetry is x equals something. That's what we're going to focus on here in a few minutes. Then, the vertex is the turning point of the parabola. It's where the parabola is decreasing, 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 and all of a sudden it becomes increasing. Or increasing, 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 and all of a sudden it becomes decreasing. That turning point is called the vertex. And so it's a point. It's going to have an x value and a y value. Notice that the vertex is on the axis of symmetry. So these two axes are going to be related because that vertex is actually a point on the axis of symmetry. When the vertex is at the bottom, like here, the vertex is at the bottom of the parabola, then it's called a minimum because it's at the bottom of the parabola. If it's at the top of the parabola, it is called a maximum. That's the highest y value. This is the highest y value. This is the lowest y value. Minimum, maximum. All right, so the two main things we need to know today are how to find the axis of symmetry and how to find the coordinates of the vertex. We said that the axis of symmetry is a vertical line. So let's write up here the equation for a parabola is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? This a, b, and c we're going to become very familiar with over the next couple of weeks. The axis of symmetry is a vertical line, so it is x equal. Remember, on a vertical line, the x value never changes, right? X is the same thing on every point on a vertical line. So the equation is x equals, and here's the formula. The opposite of b, or minus b, over 2a. That's a little formula you need to know. X equals minus b over 2a. We'll look at an example in a minute. Now, once you know that axis of symmetry, well, there's only one point on the parabola that's on that axis of symmetry, right? That's on that line, the vertex. Well, its x value has got to be the same x value as the axis of symmetry. So here's how you find the coordinates of the vertex. You find the x value of the axis of symmetry, and then you plug x into the equation to find the y coordinate. Okay, so two steps. The first thing you're going to do is find that minus b over 2a. That's going to be your x value. Then you're going to take that x value and you're going to plug it back here into the equation to find your y value. Okay, so let's look down here. Let me show you an example. So I have y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. So you want to identify a, b, and c. So a is the coefficient of the squared term. So a is 1. And b is the coefficient of the x term. So b is 8. And c, which we don't need today, but go ahead and get used to finding it, is the constant. C is 15. All right? So to find the axis of symmetry, you say x equals minus b over 2a. So here it's going to be minus, and b is 8, over 2 times a is 1. You just plug these two values in to the formula. So we get minus 8 over 2, which is negative 4. So the axis of symmetry is the vertical line x equals negative 4. Important. you've got to have the x equals. The axis of symmetry is a vertical line, so it has an equation. The equation of a vertical line is x equals something. Remember Vux, so that x has got to be there. If not, you've missed something, okay? Now, step 2, once you've found that, you are halfway to the vertex. The vertex will have -4 as its x value, and you've got to find the y value, okay? So what you do is plug that -4. You're going to take that -4 and you're going to plug it in to x. So you're going to say y equals -4 squared. Remember, when you substitute a negative, put it in parentheses, plus 8 times -4 plus 15. So you get, what, 16 minus 32 plus 15. So use your calculator to help. I think this is going to be 16 plus 15 is 31. Minus 32 is going to be -1. So I think you get -1 there. Check my work. So when x was -4, y was -1. So my vertex is -4, -1. So when it says sketch, here's what you're going to do. Don't make this difficult. We're just doing just a basic sketch. -4, -1 is right here, right? Here's your axis of symmetry, x equals -4. Then you look over here and you go, well, this parabola opens up, so this parabola is going to look something like that. Since a is positive, the parabola opens up, done. So you got the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and you sketched it. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to let you try a couple on your own. So look at this one. Y equals -x squared plus 10x minus 23. A is the coefficient of the squared term, -1. B is the coefficient of the x term, 10. And C is the constant, -23. So I want to find the axis of symmetry. So I use x equals -b over 2a. So I plug in negative, b is 10, over 2 times a is -1. So I get -10 over -2, which is a +5. So my axis of symmetry is x equals +5. Got to have the x equal, and you use the value you just found. Now, to find the vertex, you're going to take that 5 and you're going to plug it in for x to find y. So we're going to say y equals, now be careful here, this negative here is a -1, right? So that's -1 times 5 squared plus 10 times 5 minus 23. So we're going to get -1 times 25, which is -25. Those negatives are going to mess you up, so make sure you're paying attention. Plus 50 minus 23. I think that's -48 plus 50, so I get 2. Is that right? You check my work. You know I can mess up. So I get 5, 2 for my vertex. The x value is 5. The y value is 2. When I sketch, I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. There's my vertex. I look. A is negative. That means this parabola is going to point down. So I do a little downward parabola. There's my axis of symmetry, and I've sketched it. All right? I want you to try 3 and 4. 4's got a trick. Just pay attention. You'll be fine. Then turn the video back on and check your work, and then you're ready to do the practice. All right, here's what I got. 3 opens up because A is positive. I got x equals 2 for the axis of symmetry, 2, -7 for the vertex. Number 4 is a little tricky because B is 0, right? There's no x term here, but that makes the calculations a little easier. So I got x equals 0. That would be the equation of the y-axis, right? X equals 0 on every point on the y-axis. Vertex at 0, 8. And this one opens down because A is negative. All right. See if you have any questions. ask for help if you need it, and now you're ready to do the practice.